Hey, what's up guys? Thanks for tuning in to loamwolf.com. Robert here, and in today's first ride report, we're going to be checking out Scott's brand new Voltage eRide, a TQ motor equipped trail e-mountain bike in the SL category that's been a lot of fun so far. Let's learn all the details and find out how it rides. Let's go. Yes, so this is the Scott Voltage eRide, and it's a bike that really has continued from the Scott Lumen, the lighter weight, the kind of more cross-country trail-focused bike, just to bring the same integrated technologies, the same lightweight motor system to give you a little bit of assistance, but not a crazy amount that adds all the extra weight that comes with it, but just to boost the descending capabilities of that bike. And yeah, the Voltage is, in essence, the electrified lightweight version of the Genius trail bike, a bike that we've enjoyed previously when we've tested it. So the kind of main idea with the Voltage, as with the rest of their bikes, is just to bring it into their same sort of design language, so it continues to use the integrated suspension technology with the shock hidden away inside the main frame. They claim that this gives you many benefits, from protecting the shock from direct fire of mud and keeping it running longer with longer service intervals and smoother operation throughout that time, as well as also making use of the sort of natural structural integrity offered by having the shock enclosed to overall add stiffness and remove weight from the frame. So you should get a better performing bike overall. In this frame you do find the TQ HPR50 motor. This is a lightweight motor designed to offer 50 Newton meters of torque, and it's powered by an internal 360 watt-hour battery. And there's also a 160 watt-hour optional range extender, which Scott manages to get into that frame on the front of that seat tube, as well as fit in a large water bottle in all sizes. So it's not a case that you have to choose between either a range extender or being hydrated. You get to remove that compromise and choose both, which is quite nice. The TQ system has a really clean integration, so you've got a nice top tube display on the Voltage, as well as a really nice discrete remote up on the handlebar, letting you choose between the different modes and use the walk mode function as well. And yeah, it just really, we'll talk about its performance later, but really the idea behind it is just to kind of fly under the radar. It's nice and quiet, and it offers quite a natural feeling in its assistance. So it's not such a kind of shouty, I'm on an e-bike, I can really fire up the hills and make a lot of noise while I'm doing it. It's a more discreet sort of slight natural assistance on top of your own power. As you might be expecting, being a Scott bike, it has a remote lockout up on the bar. It is their track lock system as found on the Genius, which lets you only tune the rear shock on this model, but then they do also offer twin lock versions for the lower specs in the lineup, as well as the top spec SL model, which lets you control both the compression on the fork and shock and really increase the efficiency of the platform overall, so that less of your pedaling energy is wasted in moving the suspension, and it should theoretically increase the range of the motor and the battery system as well, which is quite nice. That on this model here that we've got, it uses the track lock system, which only controls the rear shock, and you get a choice between a ramp control mode and a traction mode, and then the fully open mode. So it's really nice to flick between them. On the bar, the ramp control mode increases the progression of that rear shock, and then the traction mode adds some compression damping to make a firmer but not completely locked out platform, and boost your climbing efficiency without making it totally unrideable on slightly rough terrain. But you still definitely will want to use the more open modes for the roughest of climbs to make sure you stay comfortable and get the most traction on the rear tyre. Scott continues to use the integrated suspension technology on the Voltage eRide, hiding that shock away in the main frame and delivering 155mm of rear travel, which is paired with a 160mm fork and a pair of 29-inch wheels. With that integrated suspension technology, Scott uses a little access hatch on the bottom of the frame to let you get access into the shock controls, so you can quickly change air pressure, rebound, compression settings. So it's not really any more difficult than on some of the more complex frames with the shock outside. You're still able to get really nice and easy access to the settings on that Fox Float X Nude shock. In case you're wondering, setting sag's quite easy too. They use a little sag indicator on the outside of the frame, which gives you a little window between 30 and 35% so that you can easily tune the pressure and get that set up. And really, although it may seem like it's going to be much more complex, Scott makes the user experience quite easy, and it's no more difficult really than if the shock was outside the frame. Given that it is effectively an electrified genius, it'll come as no surprise that the geometry figures are shared most of the time between the two. So on this size large voltage eRide that I tested, the reach is 485 millimeters. You get a 63.9 degree head tube angle and 77.1 degree effective seat tube angle. The rear end was made slightly longer on the voltage eRide to offer a slightly better steep terrain climbing performance, so it's 455 millimeters throughout the size range. The bottom bracket was also lifted slightly, so it's a 27 millimeter drop, and the overall wheelbase is 1,285 mil for this size large. So certainly a progressive sort of modern trail geometry, and it's proved to work pretty well so far. Scott is offering the voltage eRide in a range of builds starting from the 920 at $6,600 all the way up to the 900 SL at $13,000. We tested the 900 tuned, which comes in at $11,000 and has a pretty damn nice selection of parts on it. You get Fox factory suspension on both ends, you get a full SRAM GX Axis wireless drivetrain, Code Silver brakes with nice big rotors on there, and a lot of Scott's own finishing kit, including their Hickson SL integrated carbon one-piece bar and stem combo, which makes for a really nice and clean front end, but definitely isn't to everyone's liking in terms of the fit and feel. I actually have got on pretty well with it on this bike, but yeah, it's certainly safe to say that potentially the option to tune the height of it especially would be appreciated, and obviously with this one-piece bar stem you have to swap out both bar and stem to achieve that. But yeah, I think the fit on this bike has been about right for me, so not too much to complain about there. And then it's Scott's Revelstoke 1.0 carbon wheels on there as well, offering a nice lightweight build package, which has proved to be quite a treat. Scott does also offer a couple of women-specific models, which is nice to see, and yeah, these are equivalently priced to the 900 and 910 models. So yeah, even the lady shredders out there can get a spec and colorway that looks, yeah, it suits them and works well. Now that we've learned all the specs on this bike, let's find out how it rode as we took it out onto the trails for this first ride report. It's safe to say I've had a great time testing this Scott Voltage eRide for this first ride report, but it's only been a single day we've managed to get out on the bike, albeit a packed day from start to finish. So yeah, certainly don't take my words as gospel just yet. You'll have to stay tuned for the long-term review where we really compare the performance to other bikes and make our definitive sort of take on the bike. But yeah, for now I can say that we've had a pretty damn good time. On the way up the hill, the TQ motor system, in case you haven't sort of heard about how it performs, it's not the most powerful in the market, but what it does really offer is a almost silent ride and a really nice and natural and responsive feeling assistance. So they've kind of likened it to you but on a really good day sort of mentality, and that's really what it delivers. You definitely feel at the end of a ride on the TQ system like you've been on a ride, but you suddenly start climbing up stuff that you normally wouldn't quite be able to manage, and you just go further in less time, meaning you get more laps in and have more fun. And also, as one of the lightest, if not the lightest in the SL motor category, its impact on the ride feel of the bike on the way down, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is quite minimal. And yeah, it certainly is a pleasurable system to use, but it's a tricky one to compare to other systems because you certainly do have to put in a little bit more of your own effort to get the same sort of power, and especially in terms of torque. For me as a heavier rider, I do struggle to climb some stuff that, say, on a Fazua system I would be able to manage just, but In terms of the overall experience, if you're not just set on climbing the sort of gnarliest, steepest trails, and you just want a little bit of natural feeling assistance, which you can totally fly under the radar and nobody'd ever really know that you're on an e-bike, the TQ system absolutely delivers on that. And its range is about comparable to other kind of systems out there. So it's definitely a pleasurable system to use, and one that we've also had very little issues with, where other systems have been a little bit more buggy. In terms of the climbing geometry, the kind of overall feel of the bike when you're seated is very much that of the Genius. It's yeah, just a nice sort of all-rounder trail feeling, but the rear end length on this, being that 15mm longer than the Genius and quite a long rear end in general, 455mm, does mean that you don't have to be totally riding the bars when you're getting into that kind of granny ring on the cassette and trying to winch your way up the steepest terrain. It does keep a lot of weight down on that front wheel, especially because the bar height isn't the highest either. It just, yeah, all leads to plenty of front wheel weighting, plenty of front wheel control, and limited need to sort of really actively weight that front wheel, which makes steep terrain climbing a pleasure. But now we talk about the descents. The rear end length for me was one thing that I noticed pretty instantly as being longer than the Genius, and it does impact its ability just to kind of pop and play on the back wheel, and to, especially in like slightly lower speed drops, I did find that I'd kind of almost get hung up a little bit as I was coming off of them, just because it's your body weight would have to be so far back off of the back wheel to keep that front end up for a sustained period of time. It's definitely not something that you can't kind of counteract with a little bit more experience on the bike and sort of adjusting your technique to suit. But as one of the longer rear ends that I've ridden for a little while, yeah, certainly there was a little bit of an adjustment period. But that long rear end does then mean that there is plenty of weight on the front wheel for your descents as well, so especially in sort of flat turns and yeah, just when you need front wheel traction, it does help to offset what is quite a slack head angle and keep plenty of weight on that front wheel and make for a pleasurable and sort of quite relaxed feeling time, where just like on the climbs, you don't have to actively weight that front wheel too hard on the descents either. The overall package, the frame feels nice and stout without being abusive, but I did find that the wheels were a little bit on the soft and flexy side for me. I'm almost 100 kilos, so it's certainly a tough task for a wheel set to really provide a nice stiff and direct feel, especially when you're riding the kind of super grippy rock that you've got here, where we've been testing the bike for the first day. It makes for a lot of sort of lateral flex lateral forces being transmitted into the bike, which then has resulted in a little bit of flex and yeah, just a slightly unnerving feeling on the absolute most aggressive riding. But this isn't necessarily a bike that's designed for the absolute, you know, it's not an enduro bike, it is a sort of long travel trail bike in its nature, so it's not something that many people, I imagine, will be complaining about, and for the slightly less aggressive times, it's certainly not been a problem. Just when you absolutely try and charge through the roughest terrain, it did feel a little bit softer than I might have wanted it to. Suspension platform, as with the Genius, it works pretty well. I did find that if you go for more of a 35% sag, at least according to the indicator, rather than 30%, it does lead to slightly better performance overall, for me anyway, just taking a little bit more of the sting off the trail, giving you more traction and sort of letting you sit down into the bike a little bit more on the descents, because although they have raised the bottom bracket on this, I don't think you necessarily need it to be raised all that much because of their twin lock system, the track lock, sorry, on this bike, letting you, for the kind of most technical climbs where you need the pedal clearance, you can flick it into the traction mode, with the extra compression damping, and raise that bottom bracket up a little bit more anyway. So running 35% sag didn't prove to be an issue at any point, only leading to slightly more compliance and comfort and capability overall that made for a better time for me. But then if you did want to go for a slightly more trail feeling overall, going down to 30 or maybe even 28-25% sag is going to lead to a slightly more responsive and peppy ride. So yeah, certainly it offers you quite a wide tuning window, because even at 30%, there's no sort of notable drawback in performance other than it just changing the overall dynamics of the bike. Yeah, it's not like you need to have it set at an exact sag to work with the like leverage ratio curves and stuff that Scott is choosing for this. And yeah, certainly as when I got it set up and dialed into my preferences, this thing has been a super fun bike to test, just maybe with some compromises or choices made to improve the climbing performance over the descending performance. But this has just been a first ride, and from that first ride the spec has all been absolutely dialed and given me absolutely nothing to wish for. And yeah, you would kind of hope so for $11,000, but it's not crazy money when you consider the engineering work that's gone into this frame. They do really cover the details, and yeah, it's absolutely stunning, and definitely a bike that I think a lot of people are going to be happy with. Hope you guys have enjoyed checking out this first ride report. Do stay tuned for a long-term review coming to the site in the coming months, and yeah, we're certainly looking forward to putting some more time on this thing. If you've enjoyed this video, give us a like, leave us a comment, let us know what you think of the Scott Voltage eRide, and subscribe to the channel to see more awesome content on awesome bikes like this. Thanks for tuning in, catch you out on the trails.